From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana, Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. A jury has been selected for the trial of a man accused of murdering a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy outside of Chicago in October 2023. 73-year-old Joseph Chuba is charged with fatally stabbing Wadia al-Fayumi 26 times in Plainfield, Illinois. He is also accused of attempting to kill Wadia's mother, Hanan Shaheen. According to court documents, Chuba allegedly killed the boy after angrily confronting Shaheen about Israel's war on Hamas, which had begun 1 week prior. After Shaheen proposed a pray for peace, she said Chuba attacked her with a knife. Prosecutors say Chuba was driven by anti-Muslim hatred and that he allegedly became increasingly paranoid about Israel's war as a result of listening to commentary on conservative talk radio. Chuba faces multiple charges, including first-degree murder and hate crime. He has pleaded not guilty. Opening statements in the case began today. Last year, former President Joe Biden marked the first anniversary of Wadia's killing, calling it a heinous act. A federal judge has denied the Associated Press, or AP, an emergency order to regain access to presidential events. The White House banned the United States' oldest news agency after it refused to use Gulf of America instead of Gulf of Mexico in its reports. President Donald Trump issued an executive order to rename the Gulf shortly after his term began last month. Judge Trevor McFadden, who was appointed by Trump, ruled that the AP failed to show that banning it from the White House would cause irreparable harm. However, he did call the ban discriminatory and problematic. A further hearing is set for March 20th. The White House welcomed the decision, saying access to the president is a privilege, not a legal right. It insists that it remains committed to transparency while holding what it calls fake news accountable. AP argues the ban violates the First and Fifth Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. It also stands by its decision to use the Gulf of Mexico in its coverage, saying Trump's executive order cannot dictate international terminology. Senator Bernie Sanders has filed 4 resolutions to stop an $8.56 billion arms sale to Israel. He accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government of waging an all-out war against Palestinians using U.S. bombs to destroy nearly 70% of Gaza structures. Sanders said supplying more weapons would be unconscionable, citing violations of U.S. and international law. He also condemned Netanyahu and President Donald Trump for discussing the forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. The State Department notified Congress of the planned arms sale on February 8th, coinciding with Netanyahu's visit to Washington, D.C. The U.S. has faced criticism for supporting Israel's genocide in Gaza, where more than 48,000 people, mostly women and children, have been killed since October 7, 2023. Sanders and other lawmakers have repeatedly urged the U.S. to stop aiding Israel in this. In related news, the Trump administration has repealed a Biden-era policy that restricted U.S. weapons sales to countries violating human rights and international law. The memo, issued in 2024, was a response to Israel's use of U.S. weapons in Gaza. It required U.S. officials to report on recipients' compliance with international law and ensure humanitarian aid access. Senator Chris Van Hollen slammed the decision, calling it a betrayal of U.S. values and security. He said it undermines accountability for how American taxpayer money is spent. Human rights groups argue these funds should be redirected to domestic issues such as poverty and health care. Despite concerns, the Biden administration continued to provide arms to Israel even after reports suggested violations of humanitarian law. The Trump administration's move removes even the minimal oversight that existed. Activists fear this decision could fuel further conflicts and human rights abuses worldwide. Since 2023, the U.S. has issued $3.3 billion in military financing to Israel and is set to provide another $3.3 billion for the upcoming fiscal year. House Republicans are pushing forward with a budget that could strip healthcare and food benefits from millions of low-income Americans. The House Rules Committee has advanced a proposal in a party-line vote, paving the way for a full House debate. The budget would impose deep cuts to Medicaid and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, while offering massive tax breaks to the wealthy. Democrats have attempted to block the cuts with amendments, but Republicans rejected them. Representative Gabe Amo called the move a betrayal of struggling families. A report from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities warns that the GOP plan could take food assistance from 9 million people and weaken local economies. Another analysis suggests that Medicaid cuts could impact up to 36 million Americans. Despite the opposition, the budget has backing from President Donald Trump. Democrats have vowed to fight the bill, with Representative Pramila Jayapal declaring she will vote no on the Republican budget resolution. The final vote could happen as soon as tonight. Oil prices climbed on Tuesday, driven by new U.S. sanctions on Iran, concerns over U.S. trade policies, and expectations of a U.S. Federal Reserve rate cut in June. However, plans to restart Iraqi oil exports and hopes for Russia-Ukraine peace limited the gains. Brent crude rose 1.7% to $74.60 per barrel, while U.S. benchmark WTI increased to $71 per barrel. The U.S. imposed sanctions on more than 30 individuals and vessels linked to Iran's oil sales as part of a maximum pressure campaign. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned of serious risks for those dealing in Iranian oil. Market uncertainty also grew over President Donald Trump's comments on tariffs for Canada and Mexico, fueling trade war fears. Investors await key U.S. inflation data on Friday, which could influence the Fed's expected rate cut in June. We're bringing more news stories after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. A U.S.-based human rights group has urged the International Criminal Court, or ICC, to investigate former President Joe Biden and top officials. This is for allegedly aiding Israeli war crimes in Gaza. In a document submitted on January 19th, Democracy for the Arab World Now, or DAWN, accused Biden, former Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and former Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin of supporting Israeli attacks. The report highlights U.S. arms transfers worth $17.9 billion since October 7, 2023, intelligence sharing, and repeated vetoes at the UN Security Council to shield Israel from accountability. Dawn claims that U.S. officials knew about the devastation but continued to provide weapons and political cover. It links Biden and other U.S. leaders to alleged war crimes by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. The ICC is already investigating Israel for genocide. Dawn insists that it must act as U.S. courts have failed to hold officials accountable. Student loan borrowers may soon face higher payments. House Republicans are pushing budget plans that could roll back Biden-era relief measures. The GOP wants to end the Saving on Valuable Education, or SAVE, repayment plan. The Biden administration plan had dropped some borrowers' payments down to $0. An analysis shows that borrowers could now see payments rise by nearly $200 per month under these changes. Lawmakers are also considering measures such as capping student loan borrowing, restricting loan discharges under borrower defense, and canceling Parent Plus loans. Proposed reforms include risk-sharing payments for colleges, eliminating interest capitalization, and overhauling Pell Grants. With these potential changes and President Donald Trump proposing to shut down the Education Department, student loan advocates are urging borrowers to document their payments. Experts recommend taking screenshots of loan records on the website studentaid.gov and servicer pages to track progress and safeguard accounts. Advocates also advise borrowers to enroll in legislatively established repayment programs, such as income-based repayment, which are more likely to remain intact. They also encourage borrowers to actively push for policy changes by contacting lawmakers and sharing their loan experiences. The House is expected to vote on its budget resolution soon, with a March 14th deadline. Israeli forces demolished 2 Palestinian homes and detained 3 Palestinians in Jerusalem on Tuesday. Among the detainees were 2 Palestinians wounded during the Israeli raids on the Jabal al-Mukabbar and Kafr Aqab areas. This comes as the Israeli army continues its attacks in the northern West Bank, where it has killed more than 60 people and displaced thousands since last month. According to Palestinian figures, the Israeli army demolished 126 Palestinian structures in January, including 74 inhabited homes and 29 agricultural facilities in the West Bank. Tensions are running high across the occupied West Bank, where Israel's army, along with illegal Israeli settlers, have killed at least 923 Palestinians and injured nearly 7,000 others since October 2023. Markets in Gaza are bustling as people prepare for Ramadan, which is expected to begin this week. But soaring prices and shortages due to Israel's blockade on the region make shopping difficult. Despite a truce that came into effect on January 19th, many struggle to afford food and essentials. Many mosques were also destroyed in Israeli bombings. Gazans say life is far from normal, and this year, the holy month of fasting will be marked by grief and hardship. A Muslim leader in Australia has been put on notice for criticizing the government's stance on Palestine. Sheikh Wissam Sharkawi, a public servant and convener of Muslim Vote, has been ordered to work from home. The New South Wales Education Department accuses him of breaching its social media policy and code of ethics. Sharkawi called out what he called as the hypocrisy of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. His comments followed a controversy over two nurses in Sydney who allegedly made threats against Israeli patients. While Albanese called their remarks disgusting and shameful, Sharkawi argued it was selective moral outrage. He condemned Albanese and New South Wales Health Minister Ryan Park for being silent on Israeli attacks in Gaza. Sharkawi also criticized the media, saying Muslims are only visible when being condemned, not when they are victims. Lawyer Rita Jabri Markwell defended Sharkawi, saying he broke no law but is being targeted for political commentary. More than 24 Uyghur teachers from the Al-Aqsa Education Institute in Chinese-occupied eastern Turkistan have been jailed. They were arrested in 2017 when Chinese authorities cracked down on Uyghur intellectuals. Among them is historian Gojaniaz Yolu Tekin, sentenced to 17 years for research linking Uyghurs to the Turkic world. Media outlets have confirmed that 25 other teachers were also detained, but their charges and sentences remain unclear. The arrests were led by Al-Aqsa Prefecture security agents with help from the school's political affairs department and police. Many were later transferred to a detention center administered by the state-run paramilitary group Bing Tuan. Human rights experts and advocates say the crackdown on Uyghur educators is part of China's broader policy to suppress Uyghur identity. Israel plans to stop Palestinians freed under the January 19th Gaza truce deal from entering Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem during Ramadan. Israeli public broadcaster KAN says police will deploy 3,000 personnel daily at checkpoints leading to Al-Aqsa. Restrictions will limit entry, with only 10,000 permits granted to West Bank Palestinians. Only men older than 55 and women older than 50 will qualify. Every year, Israel imposes strict measures on Palestinian worshippers during Ramadan. This comes amid rising tensions in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Hundreds of Palestinians were recently released in a prisoner swap for Israeli captives. Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holiest site, remains a flashpoint. Israel occupied East Jerusalem in 1967 and later illegally annexed it in 1980, in a move not recognized internationally. The International Court of Justice in July declared Israel's long-standing occupation of Palestinian territories as illegal, demanding the evacuation of all settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. U.S.-based electric vehicle giant Tesla's annual sales in Europe dropped by more than 45% in January. According to the European Automobile Manufacturers Association data, billionaire Elon Musk's Tesla sold 9,945 units of vehicle in January. In January 2024, Tesla had sold 18,161 units in the European market. Tesla's sales plummeted by more than 50% in January 2025 versus the same last year. Meanwhile, other battery electric car sales soared by 34% to over 124,000 units in the European Union. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. Please donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.